So many people
Adele,
were like,
Jessie J.
Yeah, Paloma Faith. I remember having like an adoption day, which was the day that I was like legally theirs, and it was like a second birthday. No, they're opening the door in the salon to let the formaldehyde-laden fumes out the door. Like, this is so dangerous. But you know what it gave me, though? It made me think, I am not waiting to be given anything anymore. I could just end so many people. I would love to, but I won't. This has made me feel more uncomfortable than talking about like I was adopted.
Welcome to Bishness As Usual, the podcast about the people behind the careers. I'm your host, Claudia Bish, and each week I'll be diving into real conversations that go beyond the job titles. Expect honest stories, a few business gems along the way, and a reminder that behind every highlight reel, there's a whole lot more story. Now, let's get down to business.
Hey, I'm Jane Crawford, and this is Bishness As Usual.
Let's get down to business.
Yes.
So I feel like you've spoken quite openly about the fact you were adopted.
Yeah.
Can we delve into that a little bit? Because, I mean, you were really, really, really young.
Yes.
So, like,
good research from you.
I know.
I love a well-researched girl. I was a baby, and funnily enough, the studios that we're in now, literally was born like up the road. So, South London girl. So I didn't have any memory of it, but it was just always something that I was obviously aware of. I say obviously, I feel really sorry for people when they never know and then they find out later in life. My parents were amazing because they were always like, you know, I remember having like an adoption day, which was the day that I was like legally theirs, and it was like a second birthday. So they were always, you're really special. And, you know, it for me, obviously, because anything that you've always known, or should I say you don't remember not knowing, it then is not unusual. It's just like how it is. Because of the way that I was brought up, I never felt like I had to be like grateful to my parents because they were always like wanted to have children, didn't think that they could, things like that. That was the story there. But now as a parent myself and full circle, and then when you read stories in the press about horrific things happening with children because maybe their parents were, you know, unable to look after them on a psychological level and all of these things, I just think, wow, like my life could have been so different. Yeah. And I've had like such an amazing life. I mean, I come from a very working class background, but in terms of love and support and safety, it was always there. So that was mad. And now having, you know, kids myself who were really young, it's crazy because like anyone can have a child, can't they? And that's the scary thing. And when you hold a child in your arms and they're so small and they're so vulnerable, you just think it's scary. If somebody is incapable of looking after a child, it's scary. And sometimes social services and, you know, they don't always catch situations that end up being quite tragic. So yeah, I've got really good memories of like my childhood and stuff.
Love that.
Yeah.
I feel like, I don't know what the phrase is, you know, when you see online about, I don't know, there's that ignorance, isn't there, where people think if you've had this upbringing, then you can just flip it all around, but actually it does shape you.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, isn't it? Because I always like wonder about the whole nature nurture debate.
Yeah.
And I think that because sometimes you can like look at someone and maybe look at their success and you can think, well, it's easier because like maybe, I don't know, like their parents have given them an introduction, or I don't know. There's loads of different factors, isn't there, about how you can be raised and the influence that your parents have. Sometimes I think it can be helpful. Sometimes people can switch stuff around, but it is an interesting one, isn't it? The whole note. Do you
ever reflect and think like my life could have looked?
Oh yeah.
The landscape of it could have just looked completely different.
Definitely, I do now. Like as a parent and as a grown up, I feel like I'm really grateful. Whereas my mum never wanted me to like feel gratitude. She was just like, we're the grateful ones, you know.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. I think I would like to adopt as well.
Really?
I just don't know whether I like, maybe not right now, because I feel like having two kids that are 15 months apart was crazy. As a 39 and a 40-year-old, back to back. Wow, back to back C-sections was not a joke. So I feel like, but I think I'd like to do that because you know what? There's so many human beings in the world. We don't necessarily need to keep procreating. And you know what? Being a parent isn't necessarily about physically having a child. You know, I was going to say,
for sure.
Yeah.
The amount of friends I have that have step parents that have really stepped into that role, and they call them mum, dad.
Yeah, of course.
Just as normal. You
know that phrase, blood's thicker than water? I so don't believe that. Like, it's like the opposite of what I think.
Yeah.
It's just not true. Biological relatives are not necessarily. I mean, it's great if you do physically have a child and you love the child and you raise them and you're connected to them, great, but it's not always the case. And it's not what makes you a parent. It's that consistent bond building. Yeah, it's mad. It is a bit weird now as a full circle moment. It's weird because I never really sort of like had anybody that looked like me either. So now having children, I was always obsessed with like, isn't it so interesting? Oh my goodness, you look like your sibling. and people say to me, so, and I'd think, oh, you take it for granted.
Yeah.
Although weirdly, like my brother, who I grew up with, people always are like, oh, you look like each other, because they just assume, you know, he's mixed race as well. They're just like, oh. So sometimes I feel like you can grow to look like someone.
I 100% agree. People
It's true,
say
isn't
about
it?
your pets as well.
Yeah.
Like you look similar to,
You're my dog
like
now.
if you have a dog. Like,
Well,
there's
he's going grey at the same
similarities.
rate as me, so actually maybe that is true. That's so funny.
So what did your parents do when you were growing up?
For a living?
Work, yeah.
My dad actually passed away when I was 7, so that was really hard. But he was, John Crawford, he was like really outgoing. I feel like he had like an office job. So he was kind of in sales. Everybody loved him. He was always like the person that everyone wanted to be around. My mum was more of a kind of, you know, housewife. She had like part-time jobs. So she was kind of always there. And my mum got remarried to my stepdad, who she's still with now. And he was, you know, he's from Peckham. He was a bus driver, then worked for the council. So he, you know, very, very working class family, really.
Okay, so neither were in like media, TV.
Oh, no.
None of that.
No.
So then what spurred you to get into that space?
Do you know, as a kid, I was always obsessed with wanting to be in a sort of like performance capacity. So do you remember that show Fame? I know it's a long time before your time.
No.
Oh no. So basically Fame is like this 80s. It started off, I think, as a film, and then they did like TV kind of like, you know, version episodes of it. And it was like these kids in New York with their leg warmers on. And it was like, I can't remember the quote where it's like, if you want fame, this is where you start paying, or something like that. And so that was for me. I would watch like the repeats of that, and I would like pretend to like put on a performance in the living room. I was always like interested in just like sharing myself and my personality with whoever was willing to like watch me, basically. But I always wanted to go to like if the Brit School, I think it was founded around the early 90s. This is when I was about to go to secondary school. So I always like wished that I could have gone to like a Sylvia Young or one of those schools. My parents couldn't afford to send me to like a really expensive like drama school, and the Brits wasn't around at the time. Obviously that's like a state school version, isn't it? But that would have been like my dream scenario. But I was also quite academic, so then I also was
Everyone wanted to go to the Brits.
I know, and I feel like they've got an amazing alumni, like so many people
Adele,
are like,
Jessie J.
Yeah, Paloma Faith.
Oh, did you go there as
I
well?
think so.
I've heard loads of names that I went
So
to view
many.
it.
Did you?
But I was never like an out there kid at all, but I loved art. And
Yeah,
they had
because
a
they do
really good
other
art
bits.
section.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember my dad, we drove up there and I was like, oh, this is so cool, but I don't think this is for me.
Really?
Yeah.
Was that kind of the conclusion
I
you
think
came
just because
to?
everyone there was just, it was like High School Musical life. It's so easy to have a big personality as a kid, but whether that then translates into getting all these opportunities can look quite different.
My mum was always keen for us to move out of London because she felt like it was, and she was right, like Southeast London at that time. I mean, I actually went back to my old house because my husband, who's Irish, is he's got this thing in his head where, so we went back to where I used to live in South London, in Herne Hill, and he was like, and we drove down the cul-de-sac, and I was like, oh my goodness, that's my old house. And he was like, why don't we just knock on the door and see if we can look around? And I'm just like, I feel like I've got this thought in my head as a person of colour of like, I'm not knocking on anyone's door, they're going to call the police, what are you talking about? He's Irish, so he's like, I'm not going to knock on the door, of course they're going to want to be my friend. So he knocked on the door, and we ended up getting let in, and now there's like some American writer that lives there. It's all gentrified round, well, not all of Herne Hill is gentrified, but it's so different to how it was when we were there, you know, renting from the council, and then some people bought their own houses. But basically, when my dad passed away, we moved out of London, partly I think too because it was such a hard process going through not having him there, the house we grew up in. And my mum she's from Cambridgeshire, so we moved to the countryside, and so like my teenage years were there. I went to uni at 18 in Kingston, and then in the first year there was this boy called Elliot that was there, and he was on a show called Shipwrecked. Do you remember Shipwrecked?
Oh, wow, yeah, I do remember that.
That was real like hangover TV on T4.
Yeah.
And he was like walking around the common room and stuff, and everyone
T4.
Well, that was like my first like telly job, T4, like proper telly job.
Yeah.
And so he was walking around, and everyone was like, oh wow, it's Elliot from Shipwrecked. And I was like, I need to get on this show. He was like a mini celebrity at uni. So then when the auditions came around again in 2000, oh my goodness, that is such a long time ago. I went for the audition basically, and then that was like reawakened my excitement for like wanting to work in TV. Went to Fiji for like 2 months, stayed on a desert island. Jeff Brazier was on there, my other friend Chloe Everton, who's now a presenter on QVC. And so it was a really interesting time. It was like the best time. So that was kind of like the first step on the rung of the ladder of getting back into telly.
And then did it literally just spiral from there?
Well, at that time, there wasn't really any sort of like social media. So it was like really weird. So we like came back, and like people, it was still an era where people were like, can I get your autograph, like written on a piece of paper? There wasn't selfies, none of that. It was really weird. So I just like went back to work and had this thought in my head. And it wasn't until 2007, like 6 years later, that I actually got like my first like telly job.
And then when was your first, I suppose, big TV opportunity?
So the first thing that I did in terms of big for me, not necessarily everybody knowing who I was or anything, but like 2007, I'd been doing like some shopping TV. So that like really taught me how to be like a really sort of like polished like live broadcaster in the most ridiculous circumstances, because in the gallery, which is like the bit where all the producers and the directors sit, you've got like an earpiece in and they might be going, oh, what did you do last night then? Who have you or whatever, or what have you been up to, or like, you know, it was just so unprofessional because it was shopping TV. And then I was doing like casino TV or Roulette Nation I used to do, which was brilliant. So my shift might be like 2 till 4 in the morning and people drunk would be like texting me going, shout me out. And it was just, but it taught me to be so polished so that then when I went into a professional environment, it was just easy for me. So in 2007, I then auditioned for Remedy Productions, who were making E4 and T4. So that was like my first like proper telly job. And I didn't have an agent at the time. And then I had like agents reaching out to me being like, well, they reached out to like the production company being like, who's this girl? Like, she's just come out of nowhere. And then I had like a few interested, and then I signed with Money Management. And that's where I then was able to go and like do a pilot for Radio 1 Extra.
How did the job with Extra, obviously we were just talking about
Extra Factor. Yeah, so fast forward then to 2014, X Factor came at a time when things were sort of, you know, starting to build. And basically when I transitioned from being on like E4 to 1 Extra, I remember at the time I had to feel like I was so like well researched in. On E4, it was like the indie bands were blowing up. So I was like so researched in that. Then 1 Extra's all the urban stuff. So I was so researched in that. Then it was like, okay, auditioning for X Factor, like, are you mainstream enough? So it's like proving that. And then it's like, are you street enough? Are you indie enough? Can you do Radio 1? Can you do ITV? That's how my brain was thinking. Because unlike now, where you can just be yourself and then just, you know, if you've got good engagement or you're sort of, you know, I don't know, your agent's good, then you can sort of like, or you're an expert in something, it makes sense. That's kind of how it works.
Did you ever feel confused about what you actually liked?
Do you know what? Luckily for me, because I think probably because of how I was brought up as well, it wasn't confusing. I genuinely had an interest in all these areas. I think when you are somebody who, if you're black in this country or if you're mixed race in particular, you do learn to wear a lot of hats because you're in England, but you're black. So therefore, I don't think anyone ever feels like fully at home, even if you're born here. That's why it's really interesting when people start talking about, get over it, it's the flag is not, but it does feel uncomfortable for you if you're a person of colour in this country, because you have all of these memories of like seeing the BNP graffiti, or not to take the conversation into that, but like, I think so therefore you do this thing called code switching, where like if you're talking to certain people and your brethrens or whatever, and you could talk in a certain way, even if you are somebody who's like educated, you can still like, you have colloquialisms that are reserved for like your black friends or your friends that get it. And then you also understand how it is to communicate with somebody who wants to hear something else, you know?
So I don't... Some of the stuff my boyfriend says, I think, I'm not saying that back. Like... Absolutely not.
But yeah, so X Factor came along. Simon had returned to the panel. He was on and off the panel, wasn't he? Sometimes he had like people that would do a series for him. So he would have like, I think one year he maybe had like Talisa and I don't know, Nicole Scherzinger or different people as the judges. And then the year that he returned was the year that I got the job on the Extra Factor. And I remember I'd met Sunita at an event like maybe a week or two before. Like I'd done like a screen test. Then it was like, they loved your screen test, now you're going to meet Cal. And I remember her saying to me, Simon just really appreciates somebody who's like confident. So she was like, just go in there and be like, where do I sign? So that was like my vibe. I remember going to Wembley. I think it was like the arena. He had like an office and there was like a bunch of people obviously with him. Yeah, I just remember just being like super confident and just being like, come on, Simon. You know, like I'm the person for this job. So that was like the vibe.
And was he like, okay, fine?
He was sound. He was like, I was like, you know, why don't we get like a big red sofa, like lips? Because at the time I'd always wear red lipstick. It was like my signature thing. I was like, we'll get this big sofa of red lips and then we'll do this and we'll do that. And he was like, yeah, I get that. I'd see why you'd want to do that. He was just really super cool. And yeah, I always got on really well with him.
I used to be obsessed with the X Factor.
Yeah. I mean, it was such a big show, wasn't it?
I was obsessed. Like,
were you?
I'm trying to think. I really shouldn't admit this on camera. Like me and my best friend, we were about, I want to say 14, 15 at the time. And we said to our parents, please, can we have like, I don't know, £13 for the train? Like we want to go up and see if we can like spot anyone going into X Factor.
I love it.
And I think my mum and dad at the time were like, okay, here's £13.
And you were coming up from Brighton,
We
right?
were coming from Brighton down to London. And I can't remember
to
where
Wembley?
the studios... No, it was where the... No, it wasn't. It was where the live live shows were.
Oh, okay. Oh, Wembley, yeah. But was it, maybe?
No,
Which
it was some like awful, dingy area that I don't know why my parents thought that's safe. You girls go and do that. But we were literally stood outside gates that had tiny little cubes that you could see through. Like full on,
I love
you
it.
could just like get your pupil through this thing to spot anyone. And yeah, we would stand in the cold for hours.
And who were you looking for? Were you looking for like people auditioning, or were you looking for like the stars that were coming?
This was like Jedward era. So yeah, we did that maybe 3 years in a row. Maybe I'll crop that bit out.
I love that.
But yeah, and we would wait. And again, it was the autograph era. And it was the best thing when like Louis Walsh would come out and you'd get his autograph. And when I was moving out of my mum and dad's, I found all of the autographs. One Direction. It was the One Direction.
So that was like before, I think that would have been like 2012, 2013 maybe.
Yeah, I was still at secondary school.
I mean, it was
2010.
such a big show. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's going back, isn't it?
Yeah. And we would just go up and just wait outside the studios hoping people would come out to give the autograph.
That's amazing.
And
but
we
it
did.
was
We
special,
got everyone's
though.
autographs though.
Did you?
Yeah. And then ended up, I don't know why I threw them away when we left. I know, when I left my mum's.
It's a mad show, really, isn't it? To think that you sort of like go in and then 1 minute you're a massive star. I think for those people who went on to audition and then make it or not, I think mentally, even for those who were massive stars, I think it's pretty difficult, isn't it? Because for me, like I've been like chipping away at looking to be a broadcaster for a long time. I never had a moment of like 1 minute I'm like working in Sainsbury's, the next minute I'm on every paper. I never had that. I was always like just chipping away at different things. So nothing ever, of course there were great moments where like your agent rings you and you have a tear in your eye because you just got a show. But there was never a moment where, you know, 1 minute you're like no one knows you, the next minute everyone knows you. That must be mentally a right head wreck.
Yeah.
You know, and not always in a good way.
No, not at all. I mean, I don't know if you know, my brother went on Love Island.
Yes, I do.
And that was basically the same for him. Obviously,
I feel like he's one of the
X-Factor.
only people that where I look at him and I'm like, I've seen that face so many times. He's like very like known,
we'll
isn't
crop
it?
that because that will go to his head. But I mean, obviously, it's a completely different scale. It's not like someone.
What year did he go on?
2022. 2023.
What was that like for you in your life? Was everyone just like, oh my God, your brother? Or was your brother always like someone that everybody loved anyway? Was he always just like, I don't know, everyone like fancied him and then all of a sudden
he was always, I was always used to that. My mum was always like, oh my God, Luca. So I was always used to that, but it's completely different. It's not like that situation where it's you're walking down the street with Justin Bieber and everyone's screaming and crying and crowding around him, but it's almost worse because everyone does it really subtly.
Yeah.
Where they're I know you, but I'm just going to stare and not, like, I don't care enough to have a picture. Like, you can't, and again,
I'm sure people do want pictures, don't they?
No, they do.
But I know what you mean. It's like...
There's like levels. But if we go for dinner, I don't hold back. Like, I'll say what I want to say. But now if we go for a family dinner... What do you mean you don't hold back? Like, as in... Like, I'll just be talking about anything and everything. But now, going out for dinner... You're on the slide. You have to be hyper conscious about, like, are they listening? Yeah. Because now we're talking about someone we all know, you know, too. Yeah. And it's super press-worthy. Yeah, it is.
Everything that I am, I feel like comes back to me. Like as a kid, I just had the feeling of, this is going to sound obnoxious, but it's not meant to be at all. Like I just had a feeling of like, I feel special. I'm going to do something different. And so for me, I think it's so important to just always be like, you are your own, not like personal brand in the way that everyone says it now, but you're your own special person and you're famous in your own head. Yeah. And it doesn't matter whether you fall off. It doesn't matter whether nobody knows you or they do 1 minute or they don't the next. It's just like when you hold that, I think it then is great because I feel like I've seen so many peaks and troughs in my own career, in other people's careers. I've seen people who, you know, 1 minute they're nobody, next minute a massive star, and I'm texting them going, oh my God, I'm so proud of you, because like a lot of my friends, you know, I mean, a lot of these music artists that I'd interviewed had done their very first interview and then now they're like in Hollywood or something, or, you know, friends of mine that are like now like well-beaten stars and everyone's like, wow, how do you know them? And I'm thinking, I knew them back in the days. Do you know what I mean? But I think mentally what's really important is just always being in love with who you are, regardless of, so that you're not attached to something, because otherwise, that's why I think it's sad sometimes when you see stories of, you know, like X Factor stars or X whatever show was big and they're like, this is what happened to me, and that's important. It is important to share that, but I think almost it becomes like that's what you're always associated with. And I think it's really important to have like different chapters in life, whether it's family or you just have to have that value, because some people might think, I haven't seen Sarah in a while or what she's doing now, but I don't care, because I know that when it's time to go and when I'm fixating on something, I'm gonna kill it. Do you know what I mean? So I just do things in my own time. And of course you get moments of frustration and everyone does the whole comparisonitis thing, but I feel happier now than ever, you know.
I suppose that massively differs though to how you were feeling at the point you were doing 1,000,001 things and trying to fit into a box.
I felt quite sad at that time. You know, I was in a relationship. I don't want to like bash the person I was with because he was fine. He was all right. He actually wasn't. He was actually a really nice guy. We're not really friends anymore, but that was for other reasons. But no, he was a really decent guy. We were together a long time. I just kind of knew it wasn't right. So I had this little assistant called Liv, and she would come to the pub with me, not to drink. She basically would like, I'd get annihilated and she would like make sure, right, this is your phone, this is your bag. There'd be paps outside. We'd sneak outside entrance. She'd make sure like nothing was going wrong because at that time, everyone was obviously obsessed with what everybody was doing working on the show. And I used to just cry to her and be like, I don't know if I'm in love. And she'd go, well, then you need to end it. And I'd be like, yeah, but I'm never going to find anyone who like I can trust that's not going to cheat on me, but that I actually really like. Because, you know, I used to think that in my 20s, I had a couple of relationships that were sort of like exciting relationships, but they weren't like committing properly, or I didn't know where I stood a lot of the time. And then the relationship that I was in around that time of the Extra Factor, which was quite a long-term relationship, was a bit more safe. And I remember my friend Vass J. Morgan, who's a really good friend of mine I've known for years, he was just like,
he's
no,
friends
Sarah.
with everyone.
Yeah, he is. But do you know what? I've known him since he was a young boy and since before all of, you know, the superstardom, and he's just like family to me. And I remember him saying to me, no, Sarah, you are going to get with this guy because he's not going to mess you around, and he's like actually really cares about you. So that was, and it was a great relationship, but towards the end, I think we both just ended up becoming like friends. So I was quite sad at that time, you know, even though it was a time when I was like doing really well. I was drinking. I felt like I wasn't in a relationship where I was in love, and I was just, Whereas now I feel a lot more sort of secure within myself. But a lot of that is sustained sobriety as well, and becoming a parent, and the joy of like seeing my kids doing things that they love and just like raising them. It just like makes it like less about yourself as well. And you've got like this new role of like pouring into them as well.
Yeah. So talk to me about the current chapter.
The current chapter. So
where was the shift from TV to I want to start my own business now?
Oh, wow. So I went to LA for a couple of years, and although nothing really came of it, I mean, I was working for E at the time, but ironically, a lot of the E red carpet stuff that I was doing was like, the biggest stuff I was doing was like in the UK, that would get broadcast in America. But what it did do is it gave me like, it scratched the itch of like, travel and just taking a risk, you know. And I remember like I quit my one extra show. I was doing like a ton of things, and I remember my agent at the time was like, you're really gonna quit all this and go to, okay. They were just like, what the F are you doing? But I'm so glad I did it, because it got something, because now I'd probably be sat here being like, I need to get out, I need to leave, I need to like leave England. So I did that, but then got into a relationship with someone else in the UK. And the truth was as well, I was starting to panic about the biological clock. I had an operation to remove a giant fibroid. I've been going through loads of like health issues. While I was working on Extra Factor, I had a massive fibroid that I could feel through my stomach. It was like the size of a grapefruit. I'd had a breast lump removed. I didn't tell anyone because I felt like I'd feel like a broken person. And then when I got the job, I let people know, because it was so silly at the time. I remember I had the surgery, and within 2 days I was in like Cannes out there doing something with, I don't know if Simon was out there, and I was like, people were trying to hug me, and I was just hugging them like that. Imagine that, how ridiculous that is. Like, I've just had a breast lump removed, and I'm 2 days later, I'm on radio and I'm doing what?
Yeah.
Madness. But that's kind of my psychology at the time, was forget your well-being. It's all about career, all about, and that's what I think has changed for me now. So when I had the fibroid removed, we were talking about this earlier, the surgeon at the time, you know, like sometimes when a doctor will say to you, like, you know, I'm going to tell you this as if I'm talking to my relative or my sister. That's like their line, isn't it? I think, you know, you've got endometriosis, you've had this giant fibroid removed. I think that you should, like, if you want to have kids, you need to do it soon. And at the time I was like, I was always lying about my age, but in reality, I think people thought I was like 28, 29, but I was actually like 33. And I was like, oh, but I'm in this relationship where I feel like it's going to end soon, the one I was talking about. And he was like, well, we better end it soon then. And I was like, what? Well, when do you think I should try for having kids? And he was like, next 6 months. And I know, like, so people watching this will probably think that's so unorthodox. Why would someone say that? That's so wrong.
Because did a part of you at the time think, I need to just stay in this relationship now if I want to have babies?
Yeah, but I also knew that it wasn't right for a lot of reasons. So I kind of thought, from a future-proofing point of view, I need to get out now. But anyway, so when I moved to LA, that's when it ended. And then even though I was like wanting to be over there doing certain things and wanted to like build a career there, I was living in in West Hollywood, which was fabulous. And I had all like my gay friends, but it's, you know, basically there's like a lot of amazing like gay guys and lots of people with their dogs, but like, you're not going to find like a man necessarily.
Yeah.
Like, so that's kind of, it was just a bit like, what am I doing? So I moved home. And I then had on my mind what the surgeon had said about starting a family, and the biological clock was ticking and it was crescendoing, and I was like, oh my goodness. And then, if I'm being honest, there was a couple of relationships after that where in my head I just thought, I just want a baby. I don't actually care that much about you. I did like them, obviously, but I was just like, that was my programming, because that's what happens with women and no one really talks about it that much, is that. And you know what? People will go, oh, you've got loads of time. And it's like, you haven't got loads of time. It's a lie, you know? And I shouldn't say that in a way to make people feel a sense of anxiety, but I do think that in our 30s, we do have to get real, you know? When you hit 35, 36, if someone's telling you you've got all the time in the world, you haven't, and not everybody is on the same biological profile. So for me, for example, I always knew that I had like a low AMH, which is basically a blood test that you can do, which indicates your like egg reserve. So I always knew mine was low for my age. You know when you get a blood test and it gives you ranges, like
if you're 30...
Yeah, so you can do like a follicle count, you can do an AMH test. So a follicle count will tell you how many follicles are in each ovary, and obviously you want as many as possible. If you've got PCOS, it's a different ball game, so you have to like understand how that works. But I was just like, no. So I moved to Manchester, and it was a real breath of fresh air. I joined Hits Radio. I missed radio quite a bit when I was in LA, because it was, radio for me is like, it's structure. Do you know what I mean? You turn up to the same place, you talk, which, as you can tell, I love. And you play music, and if you are upset one day, you go in, and 3 hours later, you're obviously in a better mood because it's forcing you to be, you know. And then I met Brian, who I'm with now. But that was very random though. That wasn't even like forced. Like the other ones felt a bit forced. That was like, I met him in a coffee shop in an era where everyone's like DMing each other and doing Raya. And I was on Raya for a bit actually. Raya was useful to take the edge off like that long relationship. But anyway.
I was on there for a bit.
Listen, in the beginning, Raya was the truth. I don't know about now. It might be the Wild West, but at the beginning, the beta testing phase, that it was a great place.
Yeah, but everyone, did you not think? I mean, I think they accepted me by accident when I first went on there.
What do you mean by accident?
Because when I first went on there, it was just celebrities. So I was swiping and it was just
wild on there, wasn't it?
It was and I was like, I don't know how I've got in this, but this is weird. And then I went on it just before I got with my current partner.
As in recently in the grand scheme of things. As in
like the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And it was all like artists and it was all just completely...
That is so funny.
Just creatives now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just was like, let's delete that now.
So funny.
You can't talk about it publicly though, can you? As in you can't talk about who's on there. Otherwise you get an instant ban.
Oh, yeah, no. No, but this is the thing. It was quite a discreet app. I think for me, because I'd been in this long relationship, it just took the edge off it. You know, like just talking to people who, you know, it wasn't really much that was like serious to be taken from it in my view. And sometimes you get talking to someone and they live in like America and you're in the UK, so what's the point? Yeah. But anyway.
That basically happened.
Did it?
Well, I met my partner on Hinge.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. So
he's a hottie, so...
He is, I know.
Big up Hinge.
Wow, super like. Is that a thing on Hinge?
Super like? You could do a super like a turbocharged like thumbs up.
Yeah, I don't think I did it. I actually would have if that was an option, but
no, that's really cute.
That was long distance. Well, kind of long distance.
Yeah. Do you know what? I think it's really hard for modern day women because I think many of us have our eye on all these things. You know, like you've had a business for 10 years.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And you know, we're trying to do all these things, but then it's against the backdrop of like the biological clock that's ticking.
Yeah. And
so we are modern day women, but we are still acting against like biological programming of the last however many hundreds of years of, you know, so it's tricky. When I had Bonnie, which was in 2021, I'd been out the loop a bit of telly, and obviously it was locked down as well shortly before. So I'd even said to the radio station at the time, I know like I've just signed this contract to do like 5 days a week. I'm scared of getting COVID. I'm pregnant. Let me just do the chart show, pre-recorded, once a week, done. Yeah. So I did that for a bit. And then when I had Bonnie, there were a few things that happened. Like I did a couple of pilots for like some quite big like shows that didn't happen. And I remember I was like maybe 3 or 4 weeks out of hospital, standing there acting like, welcome welcome to blah, but thinking, oh my goodness, like my C-section, like it was mad. And then that didn't happen. And then I remember just before Christmas, I'd like left the big agency that I was with, and my friend was helping manage me at the time. Big up Natalie. She said to me, oh, I've just had a message from, I'm not going to say who, but it was like a certain network. And they were like, oh, they really want to work with you on this new show. And I was like, yes, this is it. I'm going to be back. It's going to be great. And then in January, when January rolled around, I was like, oh, Natalie, we haven't heard from them. Like, it's like I'm filming next week. And she reached out to them and they were just like, oh yeah, no, it's not happening anymore. And then she was like, oh, well, can we get her in, chat with the commissioner? And they were like, the vibe was very much, don't call us, we'll call you. And it just out of nowhere. And I was like gutted. But you know what it gave me though? It made me think, I am not waiting to be given anything anymore.
Yeah. I
need to own my own IP. I want to start my own business. And it actually really fueled me to be like, I just need to take matters into my own hands.
I suppose talk to me about the vision of
the brand. So how the other thing that really inspired me was a friend of mine that I was working with who works in telly. Her dad, she was like, you should meet my dad. He's got like, he works in products and he like puts like talent with brands. And at the time, probably feeling a little insecure and a little like not very confident, just had the kids and stuff. I kind of thought, yeah, I'll meet your dad. And he was lovely, really charismatic, hilarious. But I did kind of think, I haven't just come off Love Island. I'm not on Towie. I'm not, do you know what I mean? No, there's no brand necessarily that's going to be like, yay, let's launch this into said store together or whatever. So I met him, but very quickly I started to think, I actually don't want to be like the face of a brand, like a licensing deal. I just want to create my own brand. Partly because I didn't believe that a brand was going to come along and make me the face. I felt like I wasn't like hot enough. And partly because I just thought I can just own this. So basically when I went sober in 2017, around the same time I also stopped chemically straightening my hair. So I'd been chemically straightening my hair from as young as like 13, which is mad. And at the time, it wasn't because I was trying to look like the white girls. I was actually trying to look like Aaliyah, Faith Evans, Monica. Yeah. I was like an R&B girl. So those black girls in America, Brandy was the only one that saved me from myself because she had braids. So that was like the Afrocentric. I got braids at 15. I remember walking in to do my GCSEs and being like, thinking that I was Brandy. I was like, this is insane. Back then, it was very much that. And it was all like, you know, your hair needs to be like, I remember having meetings in LA and someone saying to me once, like, have your hair like TV long, you know? And it would be like the weaves. And so I had like weaves and chemically straightened hair for years. I remember when I lived in LA as well, then moving on to like Brazilian blow dries, thinking that that was more healthy. And it was like, no, they're opening the door in the salon to let the formaldehyde-laden fumes out the door. Like, this is so dangerous. Now they can see a link between chemical hair straightening and hair relaxers and increasing risk of certain reproductive cancers, endometriosis, fibroids. So all the things I went through, I feel, I can't prove, that was probably linked to a lot of the personal care products that I was using. I went on this clean living journey. And then in 2020, when I became pregnant, obviously then, and it's lockdown now, so no one can go to the salon. Everyone's normal hair growth colours coming out. Everyone was going au natural. It was like the perfect storm of like, I'm pregnant. I'm now on a clean living journey. I don't drink. Let's just breathe life back into my curls. Then because I was like pregnant, your hair grows long. So I had like this really long curly hair and I was just like, that's it. And that had just before I then met my friend's dad, who was in the product industry, and it planted the seed. And his assistant, this really nice lady, was like, I'd made this list basically of all these businesses or all these brands I thought I could be the face of that were like linked to me as a person. So my degree was marketing. I always had an idea of like positioning, how to position something. The woman in the room said, something about that hair one, the hair business and the, you know, the hair care for you and your daughter, something about that. And it stuck in my head. And then I ended up just going off and being like, I'm just going to do this myself. I'm going to find a contract manufacturer. I'm going to have a bunch of SKUs. And at the time, there was a certain retailer who had seen just the deck, the PDF, that my friend's dad had introduced me to. And she was like, yeah, I think we would want to take it. And at that time, I hadn't even made the thing. I was just like, I just had the PDF. Yeah. So I was like, oh, yeah, we're making it like soon. I was like, like, I actually have to make this now because like it looked so good on paper. And I think it was just good timing as well. And this timing was perfect because it was like the retailers were after clean. They were after...
So did that retailer commit to like an order and stuff prior to you even...
I decided not to actually... I would still love to work with them actually, but I decided that it wasn't going to be feasible to work with them. So when I actually ended up creating the products, I was like, I can't even go to these guys because I don't think... They actually asked me for a quote of what I would wholesale to them. Yeah. And I was like, this isn't going to be feasible for the brand. So I actually ended up deciding myself that I couldn't work with them. And it was annoying because I was like, wow, this is like, you know, and I knew the order was going to be massive from them as well, potentially. So I mean, there were so many steps to what I went through in terms of like I remember I was like calling all these manufacturers, just being like, right. And obviously like I'm me calling, not as somebody, now it's different because I feel like I'm a bit of an expert in this area. But like at the time, imagine like I'm in my kitchen and I'm like phoning around manufacturers being like, so this is what I want to create. Like, can you tell me like, and I'm learning things like MOQs, like what's an MOQ? Oh, minimal order quantity. Right. Okay. I'm like learning all this jargon, phoning around, learning on the go, but trying to sound like I kind of know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And, you know, I remember ringing one manufacturer and then being like, so we make stuff that's like kind of like, you know, similar to Tresemme, and we'll make 100,000 and we sell them to Tesco. We don't know about curl custard. That's not really what we do. So I was like, right, they're not going to work. And then, so I was like bouncing around, phoning all these people. And then the manufacturer that I ended up working with, I remember phoning them, and the girl, who I still work with now, obviously, was taking all these notes. I remember I was so jaded. I was just like, I give up. I literally give up. Like, what am I doing? Just because I feel like I'm not working a lot on telly, I'm trying to do this brand thing, and all these doubts popping into my head. I remember just being in the kitchen, like, left a message. She called back, and she then sent me a follow-up email of everything I'd said, and it was so bang on. And she got it. And I was just like, wow. And then we started working together. I knew I wanted at least 6 products because I'd been advised by that buyer from the retailer that if you want to have a good presence on the shelf, you need at least like 5-6 SKUs. So yeah, that's how it started. I was like, right, what is an array of products that's going to take somebody through their sort of natural curl journey from wash to style? And then that's how it all came about.
And then was that like a really costly, how much did that all,
the
whole
question.
process cost?
I had to make an order of like 20,000 units.
Wow.
In my first order, because they were not coming to play, because they're not a boutique manufacturer. You know, you can find a manufacturer that can make you 100 units, the small MOQ. So if you want to like do like selling on your website, or if you want to sell down the local market, like that's a great place to start. But I had gone in with like the kind of the big boys, so I was a bit like, I had to prove, like I had to put my money where my mouth was. So I had to like literally just pay. And I'm trying to think of like my overall investment, I'd say in the first couple of years was probably 70 to 100 grand. Yeah.
So I feel like a lot of people underestimate
how
much
it's not
they
cheap.
have to put in.
Cheap. Obviously, it's been made back, but like, well, and I say obviously people wouldn't necessarily, but it's been made back and some, but like as in like that's probably the upfront cost of getting all of the SKUs created, sampled, all of your sort of like MOQs that were high at first, then they drop them down a bit, but then in the end you need more because you actually do need to order loads more, because then we then went to Superdrug, who took it. When I sent the pitch to Superdrug, they've been amazing. Like they had faith in the brand. It wasn't even on sale. When I sent samples to Superdrug, I literally was at Ryman's printing off, like my designer, by the way, Terry, she's amazing. She brought the vision to life. I was like, I want something that's like kind of 60s looking, where it's like white on a colour. And I used to like take pictures of like random things like in my kitchen. Like I'd see like the baby cups and some plates, and it was like pastel, and I'd be like, what about that? Take her, send her a picture, I'd send her different fonts, and then she'd go, what about this? And then whatever is in my head, she was able to just create. When Terry created the design and we had like a mock-up of the artwork, because we hadn't actually done a production run, when Superdrug asked for the samples, I was like at Ryman's like printing off the designs on like shiny sticky back paper, and I had actual product in these bottles, sticking them on. And I remember getting this basket, and it had all this, and it was like handwritten card I put in, sent it off to the buyer. So when they agreed to take it, they hadn't even seen this. It was mad. They had so much faith in it. And the great thing is
that must have been a really big confidence boost for you as well. Investing all that money and thinking, okay, this is paying off.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it wasn't like 100 grand on day one. It was like over time. But like, yeah, no, it was. And do you know what? It was more than that. And also, like, Brian has helped me as well, by the way. Like, full disclosure, like, my other half has helped me. Like, do you know what I mean? So we've always kind of, like, backed each other in different things. I mean, he's a football manager now. So we're like Bonnie and Clyde, like, behind the scenes. Like, we're helping each other out on loads of levels, like contracts, this, that, the other. So I started sampling my first samples early 2023, did loads of testing. Everything went on stability, which is a process you go through at your manufacturer, where it goes like in a lab for like 12 weeks. I think in the summertime, I remember sending them samples, and then the buyer and I spoke about it actually it launched into 100, first of all, it was 120 stores, and that was all agreed by like maybe this time of year, like back in 2023. And then it launched 2024.
About this 12 weeks thing. No, this is interesting.
Yeah.
Because I had no idea.
Yeah, no, so you have to be, so in order for you to have like a product that is ticking all the boxes of regulation, you have to have something called like a product information file, or a PIF. And within that, you'd have like safety certificates, you have to go through stability testing. So that's like a 12-week process where the product gets tested. I believe it's at room temperature, super sort of like, it's accelerated. So it would be like the equivalent of like super hot, cold, I think. I don't know the full details of like exactly what they're doing in the lab, but basically 12 weeks. So at 4 weeks, they'll look at it, see how it's going. 8 weeks, they check again. And then at 12 weeks, if it passes, that's the equivalent of you getting like a 3-year shelf life. So like if it passed like 4 weeks, essentially that's like saying, because it's like accelerated the testing, that's like saying this is what happens over a year. 8 weeks is 2 years, 12 weeks is 3 years. So you do that, and then they do something called challenge testing, which is where they check whether your preservatives are working so that it's not going to go off. But if you're like using like an established contract manufacturer, that's just like, that's like their bread and butter.
If you're not, then
if you're doing it yourself
this
at home,
could go on forever.
When I see videos of people like, and they're like, you know, I made this, and they're like churning stuff around in their kitchen. I wouldn't even, you know, like, okay, I am a science boffin, so I used to go back and forth with chemists all the time, because the thing about these products is they all rank as excellent on the UK app if you scan. So I kind of knew on paper.
I love that.
Yeah. Oh, that app's amazing.
So
and it was founded by a French woman called Julie Chapon. And I reached out to her before we even made the range and said, you know, like, I love the app and I want to, you know, create a range that ranks as excellently clean on the UK app. And so we stayed in contact. But the thing about them, which makes them have so much integrity, is they won't back any brand. They were like, we don't sponsor brands. We don't do anything with them, because they want to be really authentic. I used to book sessions with chemist consultants somewhere in America. So I'd be up till like 1 a.m, having chats with them, understanding like, what is a surfactant? A surfactant is the parent ingredient for, you know, something that like cleans something. What is an emollient? What's an emulsifier? I actually really had to learn every single element so that I could go to the chemist and go, I don't want that preservative because it's going to drag my score down on UCA, and most importantly, it might be an endocrine disruptor. So obviously, because of my background of like endometriosis, fibroids, breast lumps, I wanted to create a range that didn't have any like hormone disruptors in it. I'd grown up going to like, you know, these sort of like independent shops, like the black kind of Afro shops, which I still love to go to, but a lot of the products in the stores, you know, you don't know whether they're safe or not, but you're using them because they're like there to like control kind of Afro hair. And so obviously the whole marketplace is a lot cleaner now. So like, I still can't really just go into any hairdresser and expect that they're going to know how to do my hair. I'm thinking of like my friend Kimberly from the Curl Clinic in Leeds, or I'm thinking of the Curl Bar in like Enfield, and it's hard to get in because obviously everyone wants to go there. So it's like, it's still pretty specialized. And even a lot of the Afro hair shops that I grew up going to and have so many amazing memories of like getting my hair done, a lot of those stylists don't necessarily know how to do natural hair, because a lot of black women are going in with like relaxed hair, texture release, weaves, braids, you know, all of that kind of thing, rather than actually natural hair.
Have you found that being a minority hair group, that this has been more successful than you anticipated? The
brand itself is designed, funny enough, like from a branding point of view, like sometimes people go, can I use it because I've got straight hair? It's a shampoo, so it's a sulfate-free shampoo. So if you used it, you would love it because it's not going to strip your hair. It's not like, sometimes people will think, oh, anyone can use it.
But the reason why with this are appealing to everyone, whereas another hair brand might just be appealing to like white hair. Do you know what
do you mean? Sorry.
As in this, anyone can use this shampoo.
So in theory, anyone can use.
Whereas not anyone with Afro hair could use any shampoo, is my point.
Ah, yeah.
Whereas if you or I don't know, like my partner has to use specific shampoos.
Yeah, that's true.
Whereas like, because they're not appealing to everyone. So you're already winning with having a product that anyone with any hair type can use.
That's a good point. I think
that should be your marketing strategy.
No, but I think, to be honest though, I think what is also, because I actually worked with a girl that just did some research for me. She was saying to me that a lot of the time though, in the black community, there can be a lot of distrust though for a brand that seems like it's for everyone. So sometimes it's not great marketing to be like, we're for everyone.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, where's the sense of understanding of the community? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
so something that can be like seen as mainstream can also then turn off. Because I think we're going back, like a lot of consumers will love the fact that it's like black owned. A lot of the time now people prefer the indie brands. And so for example, there could be a black owned brand that like sells to whoever, a massive parent company, a lot of people then start going, oh, I don't like it anymore. It's not black owned, or it's like, ever since it got bought by so-and-so, the formulas have changed. Like, there's all of that going on. For me, the most important thing though, beyond anything, was that it's just as clean as possible, but also worked and was at a reasonable price point. So I always think of it as in ACE, like ACE, affordable, clean and effective. Because sometimes what I was finding when I was identifying the gap in the market or doing my like white space analysis or whatever, where we occupy that space is that it's clean but affordable and works. Because sometimes you get something that's clean and it's like really great, but it's like useless. Or it's like really expensive and clean, or it's like affordable and everyone knows it, but it's toxic. So it's like there's not that many that are in that price range, but is also clean and actually works. So
to tick all of those boxes, how long did that whole process take?
I had a lot of people telling me price it too low. I had a lot of people telling me, why are you trying to be so clean? Like, even like one of the chemists that I was talking to was like, I know you don't want silicones, but it's just the press saying that it's bad. They're not actually that bad. And the thing is, like, silicones may not be that bad, but for curly hair, because it's something that will coat the hair and stop moisture getting in, it then becomes like a false economy of like, oh, I think my hair feels like smoother and more kind of moisturized, but then in the end it will be drier. So for example, with the curl custard, we had like this version that was like sick, and I was like, this is amazing. And my friend Kim, who is from the curl clinic, she is like a very candid northerner. She will tell you what you think even if you don't like it. So she was like, I was really nervous to like try your products because I didn't want to have to go, don't like it. I won't do her like Leeds accent, but she went, but I actually love this custard. So we had this custard,
such a good name,
the curl custard. Yeah. And so I ended up winning a Cosmo Award. But what happened was, this was the version before it came out. That's something I didn't want, like pegs or something, or silicones. So I said to the guys, like, I can't have silicones and I can't have pegs, because just before we were about to produce it, I sent them this email going, just double checking it's not got all of these things. And then they came back and they were like, oh no, it does have, like, it has got pegs and it has got silicones or something. And I was like, no, this is before we launched. So I was like, back to the drawing board. So it could have launched earlier, but I had to keep going back to the drawing board. And I remember one night at like 2 a.m, I said to Brian, oh, he was hating me for this, he's just thinking about football the whole time. I was like, the custard's amazing, but it's got a peg. What am I going to do? I can't launch it without the peg. And he was just like, just do whatever you think. He's thinking about what formation the lads are playing the next day. But he's just like, whatever you think is right, just do it. Just stick to your guns, your instincts. So back to the drawing board. And then finally, after about 10, 12 revisions or whatever, we came back to the custard that was like almost identical to that one that we wanted to launch, and it didn't have the bad ingredient. It added time on. But to be honest, I think as time goes on, people are learning how to like formulate more clean anyway.
Did you have any other crazy hurdles that you had to go through?
There's always like stuff like a label might have a typo in it, and then you've made like X amount of thousands of sachets, or just like things that happen. Like,
were you doing this all by yourself?
Yeah.
Or I know you said about the designer, but did you have a
team? It was just
me and Terry.
Me, Terry, Brian would like, it was so funny. So Brian used to manage the under 21s at Man City. So like any boy that had like curly hair, what I love now, especially in our community, is that the lads are wearing their hair really long. So back in the days when me and my brother were at school in the early 90s, he would have like, you know, like a high top, and it was all about getting patterns like in your hair, but it was all like fades and stuff. Now I feel like the lads are having like afros. So me and my daughter, who would have been about 2 or 3 at the time, would go in with all these boxes into the training ground and give out like all of the products to everyone. But no, it was just me, Terry, and obviously the manufacturer. We were even posting the products out like from me and Brian probably did about 200 parcels. Like, we used to go to the local post office in Hale Village. We don't live around there anymore, like Altrincham, Cheshire way. And they used to just laugh like, oh, they're back again. And we just have massive bags.
So you were doing all the logistics?
Everything. If an order came in and Brian was going to be doing it, I'd go, you make sure you have polished the bottle, you've done this, you've made sure this, and he'd be like, oh God. I go, I'll do it. And honestly, it was crazy. It was like label printer machine, all of this. Obviously now we're in a fulfillment centre and all the rest of it, but it's just literally me, the girls, like Bonnie was a baby at the time, and then Brian and Terry, like my designer.
And now what does it look like?
Now it's like I've got like an operations manager, I've got like a girl that's is working with me doing sort of like a bit of everything and socials and stuff. Then I've got like my warehouse that hold the stock that goes B2B, so like we're in Ocado now as well, so we go to Ocado and to Superdrug, and then we've got like the fulfillment centre that do the D2C, so they will fulfill stuff that comes through the website. And I'm trying to think who else. It's still pretty lean, to be fair. Like, I am trying to get it to a point where I can like step away a bit, but it is.
What point do you want to take the brand to now?
So we've got
what's
like,
the vision overall?
Oh God, global domination. we get messages constantly from like other countries, like whether it's customers being like, oh, do you ship to France, do you ship to Belgium, do you ship to America, do you do this? And I'm just like, oh, it's just like, what what I need now to do is raise investment, to be honest with you, because we bootstrapped it long enough. So that's probably going to be the next phase, because, you know, we've had some like really serious interest. We're getting like messages all the time by like LinkedIn. So I think now that like we've got new products launching in 2026. We went from 120 stores, we're now in nearly 400 at Superdrug. So it's like more retailers, more countries, more products, but we need to raise investment because, you know, like there's so many ideas that I've got, but you need a lot of dosh, and it doesn't matter. Like,
you're a profitable business now though already.
Yeah, it's profitable, but you know, if you really want to, you know, you're next to brands that have got millions to spend on marketing just off one product. You can, well, I am competing because there I am like on the eye level shelf in Superdrug, but like I think if you really want to go after it, I think you really have to raise investment. And the thing is, like in the early stages, people would say to me, oh no, don't get an investor in because, you know, you want to have control and all of this. But I think sometimes like 80% of something's better than 100% of nothing. And you could end up like, you know, most businesses fail because of cash flow running out. So, you know, you have to be careful how you sort of, we've had to grow sustainably. Like you do hear a lot about these stories of like, now we're doing this, now we're doing that. But what people don't understand is there's either a lot of investment that's gone in that you don't fully know the story. And sometimes there's like a parent company that actually owns the brand. And that person is more like on a licensing deal, but they're like the face.
Yeah.
I sounds like I'm throwing shade. I'm not, but do you know what I mean?
No, I hear it a lot.
And also like if you're breaking even, or even if the business is making a loss, if it's a feasible business and people want the product and you can see like light at the end of the tunnel in terms of like how a cash injection would help you then, you know, market the product and increase your rate of sale, then that's also like a viable business. I mean, you only have to look at Victoria Beckham's documentary. I mean, we all knew that the business was at a loss for years, but you only have to look at that. That's still an iconic brand. If God forbid she passed away tomorrow, that's an iconic brand and it's never been profitable.
Most of the designer brands aren't. In terms of from clothing.
Yeah. And so what happened now she's in beauty, that's what I mean. And if you were to put in ChatGPT now, like what is the most profitable product business on the planet, or FMCG, fast moving consumer goods, I'm pretty sure it's going to tell you beauty, hair care. That's where it's at, I think. Like, there are certain areas where it's saturated, but I think that if you look at most people now, they're doing product businesses, you know, and I believe, I always say this to Brian, I always say in a world of AI, we're in the right businesses, product and football, because people will always want to go to a stadium and actually watch real human beings play football. AI can't actually change that. True. People want to physically pick up a bottle and use it in their hair. AI can't replace physically buying something that so I think that we're needing to go back to the old school. Like for example, those people that do tours of like podcasts, like maybe you might do a tour and people are paying people are paying to see you, or where you can physically be there or the product is physically there. That's the way forward, I think.
For sure. So so investment is
that's the next phase. That's the next phase.
Do you have like any revenue goals, anything like that?
Hundreds of millions. No. So we had like this investor deck, right? We've got like a really beautiful promotional deck which shows where the brands come from, the marketing. It's got all these great images in. It shows the story of the retail story. So at first we were like just projecting everything. Now we've actually got actualized figures of nearly like 2 years of sales. So all of that kind of stuff is really important. But I feel like what's tricky is that it's so time consuming making like the investor deck. And it's always like the finance slide, which is the bit, like I've had a lot of people go, I've actually, to be fair, I've been approached by a few people that are like, we want to invest or we're interested. Can you just send us the investor deck? And I'm just like, oh, the investor deck's so annoying. So I sit there with Camille and she's like, right, I've like done this. Now you're just going to have to like go back through the bank statements. Can you just give me this information? I'm like, yeah. And then there'll be something else that happens. And I'm like, oh, there's this order. This can't go wrong. We need to. So that's kind of what you have to do. There's so much guesswork involved. But like, luckily now we're starting to get actualized figures. But if I'm being honest, it's a headache and it's well annoying to do. I've actually probably avoided even getting investment just for pure headache of making the investor deck.
Having to approach investors, or are they just literally, I know you said you've had
I haven't approached any yet. It's just been people that have come to me. But I'm not saying like they've been going, we want to invest, like falling over themselves. I've like had the odd vague conversation where I've gone, oh, do you know anyone who, but then I do it and I'm like not doing it with my chest. I'm kind of saying it, but then I know when the time is right, when I really want to like lock into whether it's like angel investment or VC. I know me being me as a capable person who's very proactive, I think laterally, I know how to find people things, I know how to do stuff. I know that like if I have the time and the inclination, I know what to do next. I feel like I've just not had the time. So I do feel like I've been spread a bit thin and on the verge of burnout, if I'm being honest. And then I probably am going through like perimenopause or something. So, and then I've got 2 small kids and then I'm doing 5 radio shows a week. So it's like, it's a lot. It is a lot. Wow. But yeah, it's mad. But I feel proud of myself because I think the entertainment industry could have like knocked me where I thought, oh, how frustrating. And then I'm like, I proved to myself that there's other things that I can also be doing and be successful at. So it's been like a nice reminder that I'm not like tied to anything or anyone. I'll always have something inside me that can create something.
And I feel like with TV, maybe you don't want this, but you can't hand down the mic to your kid. Whereas with this, again, I don't know if it's something you'd want to do, but what a lovely thing now that if your kids want to, it's a whole different landscape. They can jump into helping you with this side of the business and get into that.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's a legacy project, isn't it? You own it. It's your own IP. And it's also like a purpose-driven brand, you know, because as the black girl growing up who like relaxed her hair for years, who had operations to remove lumps and bumps, who worried about if they were ever going to have kids, had them at the last minute, and then is launching a brand that's going to help other people hopefully fall in love with their natural hair and do it in a safe way. That's a really beautiful full circle moment that means more to me than any project where I'm just like reading the script for someone else.
Yeah.
You know, I still love the entertainment industry and I still know that there's loads I'm going to do, but I love the chapter that I'm in at the moment.
Right. In each pod, we have a segment called None of Your Bishness. So
Love
you
it.
either answer the question or just say none of your bishness.
Oh my goodness, girl. I don't think
not...
I remember seeing that on the other episode.
No, this is actually new.
I saw this on something, and I thought...
In the last lot, I did things I wish I knew, of like what you would tell your younger self.
Right, let's do it.
Okay. What was the biggest check you've ever received for a single job, TV or brand, and did it feel worth it? As in the amount. You don't have to say the brand.
Well, I've got to say the figure.
Yeah.
None of your business.
One thing you think is total bullshit about the empowerment/girl boss narrative?
That you can have it all. I think you can't have it all. No, you can have it all, just not all at once. You know, I think that you have to be realistic. Like and don't make yourself wrong for that. You know, like if you're trying to be there for like drop off and pick up of school with the kids, but then you're also trying to like work around the clock on your business, that something's got to give. You've got to like work out a way and not feel bad for that. Because I think women still do have we've got the biggest amount of guilt for not doing it all, you know, perfectly. So yeah.
The most fake shit you've ever seen behind the scenes that the public would never believe happens.
I could just end so many people. I would love to, but I won't.
No, you don't need to name names.
Oh.
Yeah.
No.
Just like fake shit that you've seen. Oh, give me a name.
Sorry, what do you mean? Okay,
just the most fake shit that happens.
God, can I just say, this has made me feel more uncomfortable than talking about like I was adopted. I'm like, oh my God, what's she going to ask me? No, fake like that. It's so funny because like when we do shoots and like someone might go, should we? And I'm like, no, we're not using that product. We're doing everything clean, Colson. This is how it's going to look. And I'm like such a purist. But no, I'm trying to think behind the scenes what I've seen. I think I've seen things where I don't think you can get away with it as much now, but I've like seen things where, you know, in telly, like things are set up, but you think they're real when you see them. But I think a lot of people that know that
That's
now.
the worst piece of gossip ever. Has motherhood ever made you quietly question whether you still want this level of ambition?
Yeah. Sometimes I do think, oh, Sarah, just let Brian prep his games and let them get promoted. You just be all about the kids. Like, do you actually need to do all of it? I do sometimes think that because number one is the kids now in my head. Around about the same level, slightly lower than that is probably just my overall well-being. Probably should be number one. And then Brian like factors maybe at number three. But no, I think what I've seen is like the renaissance of people. Like there's certain people who you think you never see again. And then all of a sudden, like because of social media or because they've gone off and written a book so I feel like I can always do whatever I need to do. And it's always going to work and I'm always going to feel fulfilled. So there are times when I just think, and I think you see that a lot with women actually, where they'll like quit certain things and it's because there's a lot going on with the kids and you don't want to miss certain moments as well.
If I told you £5 million guaranteed tomorrow, but you'd be labelled sellout forever,
Never.
Would you take it?
I would take it. Sell out of what? Like sell out as in
No,
like...
as in you would be a sellout.
But in what way sell out though?
Like, you know how you said earlier on that some black-owned brands will sell to a company and then you don't want to then support that brand because it's gone to white founders or...
No, I don't agree that there's a problem with that. Sometimes people say, whether it's 5 million, 10 million, I'm not super excited by like those sums. That's not because I'm like loaded, but what I mean is like I actually think sometimes when you're selling out, someone once said to me and it stuck in my head, are they selling out or are they buying in? And I think that you should buy in. I don't think that like black founders have to be confined to independent. Like in terms of like my reputation, Like if somebody thought, I can't think of an example, but if I thought that something was going to, I don't know, make it seem as if I'm like lying about something or trying to damage people, there wouldn't be any amount of money you could give me that would make me want to appear like that at all. But in terms of like selling the company to a bigger company, I don't see the problem in that. No way. Like look at Miele Organics, who's like grossing hundreds of millions with the brand. Like fair play to her. And why shouldn't black founders be able to like go and
100%.
become like global companies? I was just saying that like I think it's like a bit of a balancing act of like wanting to make sure that the community know that you're genuinely about them, but at the same time commercially it's really important to grow. I'm a mainstream girl. I'm all about like that's why it was important for me to get the brand on the shelves, because I am a bit old school and I like the idea of just like me as a teenager going out and there was only like John Frieda Frizzies on the shelf and I'm like, that's not going to be for me. I wanted it to be, you know, present on the shelf. So
well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
No,
and
honestly,
keep smashing it. You're doing so well.
You keep smashing it.
Oh,
honestly, I'm really excited by this. So cool.
You're going to smell divine as well. Do you like coconut?
I love coconut. Oh, it smells like holiday.
It smells like holiday, does, yeah.
That is so lovely. Thanks for listening to Bishness As Usual. If you enjoyed the episode, please make sure to follow, subscribe and leave a rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. New episodes will drop every Monday, so until then, stay inspired and we'll get back down to Bishness next week.